Good afternoon, traders. This is a live trade recap. I took no trades this morning at the market open. I'll show you why. I'll show you what I was watching and why it didn't give me any entries. So once again, the second day in a row that this came into play. It's always possible that there will be no trades to take. Super important to remember that. Otherwise, you might force trades into weak setups or weak stocks. And I have some examples of that to show you today. So let's look at the mid-cap screener. I always like to show you where I get my stocks from. So here is my screener, midish cap, and always click those three dots, click on modify. And my window to take trades just closed at 10:30, so the screener should look relatively the same. Once I get my screener up, I organize it by volume. I think it was already by volume there. And you can see that there's not a lot of action. American Airlines barely moving. I need to see 2% or better. Same thing with CCIV. VNE looks really exciting when you just look at the percent change, but I'll show you why on the chart it wasn't anything to be excited about at all. And then RF. The one thing that was moving well on the chart but didn't have enough volume was SKX, which is Skechers. So you can see it down here. It's one of my rules is that it must be on the first page of the screener because I'm organizing it by volume. So if it's not on the first page, then it doesn't have a lot of volume. And this one didn't actually give me an entry anyway, so I guess that held true. So let's take a look at first VNE and why I avoided that as soon as I saw the chart. Actually, let's go to my single chart page. So here's VNE, and let's look at the daily chart first, and you can see that it's above the 200 MA. I mean, way above the 200 MA. Lots of volume in it today. But let's look at the pre-market and after hours chart. Look at this. So it went from going sideways here yesterday to sideways in the pre-market and aftermarket, but some huge kind of unexplained gap. Usually, if these things are legitimately moving up, then you will see some type of a diagonal move on the way up, just kind of like the way this 50 MA line, but obviously the candlesticks along that line. And that didn't happen. There's a sideways move. I have something right in my plan that tells me to avoid those type of stocks. So look at it over here. The stock has gapped up. There must be a trend connecting it during extended hours. Don't trade stocks that have huge gaps during extended hours like ticker symbol RAVN did on June 21st. So that's pretty much what we're looking at here on VNE is the same thing. And the problem with that is it generally will not give you a 2-hour trade. And you can see that out of the open, it did run up a little bit, pulled back, and then it just continued sideways. So it would have been very hard to get a profitable trade off of that if there was one. So let's take a look now at my charts page. Actually, let's look at the video. And you can see me put the ticker symbols on the charts page. VNE, that was when I was still checking it. You'll see that I removed it or replaced it with something else. AMC was also on my screener this morning. If it goes on my screener and it's trading above the 200 MA daily average, then it goes on my charts. I don't care what stock it is, whether it's a meme stock, a hype stock, or otherwise. Doesn't matter. If it meets my screener criteria, it goes on my charts page. All right, so then CCIV, CLF, those were all jumping up on my screener, but most everything was kind of selling off at the open. So I put out my previous day or previous session high lines. That's those yellow lines there. If the price does not break out above those lines, then I can't even look for a trade. So I'm just waiting to see one of those lines get broken. And then American Airlines, and this is just me going back to my swing trade, moving my stop up. American Airlines had a really strong move there. What time was this? Around 9:40, 9:44, I think. Really strong push up, and then met some resistance at the previous day high, 2162. Kind of did the same thing yesterday, but here was the difference. On the next candle, it pushed up really hard, so it looked pretty strong. I was pretty excited about this stock giving me an entry after a pullback, but it did not, and it ended up being a good thing. So this is an example of my plan and my criteria keeping me out of a bad trade. And that's ideal. It doesn't always happen, but if your plan is good and your rules are good, it will keep you out of losing trades a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And the reason why we use stop losses is because it doesn't work all the time. So here's what happened with American Airlines is that you could see that I put a line, a red line in the chart. That's the break of the ABCD pattern. So if that fails, then I don't look for an entry, because that means that there is weakness in the stock, and you can see what happened afterwards. It just sells off. So that held true. And then on this, just in case you're wondering about Regional Financial, that popped up on the screener because of this volume bar here, but there were no entries to take afterwards, because you could see after that move, it pulled back and just sold off. There's no, even if there was a small pullback here, I would not have taken an entry because of this already overextended move. But I did keep that up on the chart just to kind of keep an eye on it and look, use it as an example, really, like, you know, why do I not take entries like that? If you look at RF, it just sold off. It went lower than even the open price. And look what's happening to American Airlines now. CLF, it never broke over its previous high. Look at it. This looks like a 2R trade, but it's not. I calculated it. It was about, I don't know, 10 or 20 cents short or something of being a 2R trade. So you might, and I only bring that up because I wouldn't take this trade anyway, but you might look at it and say, well, why didn't you take this reversal trade? This looks like a really nice move. Well, if you zoom in on these candles and you say, okay, I'm going to enter for the break of that red candle there, my stop loss is the low here, it doesn't actually give you a 2R trade there. So not to say that, I mean, it can, that does happen sometime, but more often than not, when you see these things fail their previous high, they're going to sell off, and that's why I avoid them. And I don't care if it gives you a reversal trade, you know, 1 out of 10 times, those are not the kind of odds that I want to trade with. And then SKX, this one's kind of a good example of, you know, a low probability trade that works out. I mean, I guess if, you know, this is, again, not part of my plan, so there's no reason for me to even consider a trade like this. But if you kind of look at this like a sideways move and you think, okay, maybe there's some level of resistance here. Maybe if it breaks that resistance, I want to get in. You know, maybe you could have made like a small profit because it does make a bit of a move and then starts to fail. But really the point here is that you see how the majority, well, all of these stocks are trading below their previous high, and all of them are selling off big time, except for one, SKX. So it's showing you that more often than not, when these stocks are trading below the previous high, they are weak. That's the point. There's always going to be exceptions to that. SKX is one of those. But even that one wasn't that strong. You know, it kind of gives these little moves to the upside and then gets sold off again. Just continues sideways. So now you can see the video here is right around 10:30. That's my cutoff time to look for a trade. Nothing met my criteria. SKX never got up to its previous high. And that's that. So very easy to sit back and just watch and not take a trade because nothing is meeting my criteria to take a trade. So that's it. All right, yeah, nothing to show on the spreadsheet because we haven't added anything. I'm going to make a video this weekend going over the plan and all the updates that I've added to it this week. And we'll look at the spreadsheet. I also have a video coming out tomorrow about my swing trade with SPXL, which you can see I'm in as the time of this video. And then also I have a special video coming out Saturday midday that is a new video concept that I'm starting that I think you're going to enjoy. And I call it Day Trading Stories, and this story is going to be the story of my worst trade ever, which is kind of embarrassing, and I go through all the details and I show you the charts after I tell you the story. So check out that tomorrow around noon. As always, go into every single plan with a trade, stick to that plan, and no matter what, always take your stop losses, honor your profit target, and in the long run, you should be green. Take care.